Hello, and a warm welcome to you all out there, my esteemed viewers and listeners. You must understand that it gives me a lot of hope to know that you are still out there for us. It is cheering news to me to know that you are always there accompanying us in this journey to make this society a better place for all of us to inhabit. Welcome to the 8th edition, episode 8 of Human Rights Heralds. The channel once more is Human Rights Heralds, a quarter hour with the Human Rights Wizard. And I am your usual anchor person, Ogochukwu Onoha, the Human Rights Wizard. Today, our focus is on the American novel To Kill the Mockingbird. Incidentally, To Kill a Mockingbird, a novel by Harper Lee, is currently recommended for WAEC SSE students, NECO SSE students, and UTME students as conducted by the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, JAM. Today we want to discuss To Kill a Mockingbird from a human rights angle. Remember that the object of this channel is to educate us on human rights, to get us understand why, to have a better society, we all need to be respecters of other people's rights. It is a duty the society has placed on all of us to respect other people's rights, because it is when we do so that we can expect others to reciprocate by also respecting our own rights. In the society that you and I live in, every minute, every day, people are tried in institutionalized lockups and found guilty for offenses they didn't commit. In other words, the innocent are tried and found guilty every day in the society you and I live, in lockups that were set up for the very purpose of finding the innocent guilty. It is this scenario that the story in To Kill a Mockingbird illustrates. Let us take a look at a brief synopsis of this story. The story is set in the small town of Macomb, Alabama, USA, in the 1930s. The narrator of the story is Scout Finch. Now let's take a look at the plot of the story. Scout Finch and her younger brother, Jem Finch, are children. They spend their summers playing around in the neighborhood, along with their best friend, Dale. And occasionally, they steal a look in the compound occupied by Boo Radley, a strange neighbor who hardly leaves his house, making people say a lot of things, whisper a lot of things, gossip a lot of things about him. Some think he is a ghost, some think he is a monster, some think he is a spirit, some think he is an imaginary creature. Then suddenly, there is tension, racial tension, all over the town of Macomb. A black man called Tom Robinson has been accused of raping a poor white woman called Mayela Ewell. Atticus Finch, a lawyer, a widowed lawyer, and father to Scout and Jem Finch, elects that decides to defend Tom Robinson in the law court. Mr. Bob Ewell, the father to Mayela Ewell, who claims that his daughter is raped by Tom Robinson, has actually fabricated this story in order to put the black man in trouble. The white community in Macomb hates Atticus Finch, a fellow white man who has decided to defend Tom Robinson in the law court, knowing very well that the allegations brought against him are false. Although there are compelling evidence to prove that Tom Robinson is not guilty as accused, is innocent, the court jury, composed entirely of white lawyers, find Tom Robinson guilty. Later on, Bob Ewell, the father to Mayela Ewell, the poor young woman for whose sake Tom Robinson has been found guilty and sent to prison, decides to take his revenge on Atticus Finch for daring to defend Tom Robinson in the law court. Meanwhile, Tom Robinson, who is now in prison, tries to escape imprisonment and gets shot dead. Bob Ewell sets an ambush against Scout and Jem Finch and tries to harm them. He tries to harm the children in order to spite their father for defending Tom Robinson in the law court. So he lays an ambush against them on the way while they were returning home one evening. At the point where he's almost injuring the children, Boo Radley emerges from the shadows and rescues the children, thereby proving that he is a gentle, shy protector. And the eyes of the children opening wide to realize that this man, whom they had feared as a monster, is actually a gentle, kind-hearted man who hates injustice. This is the story. As the story ends, Scout Finch and Jem Finch, those two children mature, they become adults, even in their childhood. They begin the play as carefree children who play about in a neighborhood, and they end the play psychologically mature, realizing that they live in a world where the innocent can be found guilty and punished. In a world of inequality, where people are hated and despised and persecuted and oppressed because of their skin color, because of the class they belong in, because of their lineage, because of their gender, because of their ethnicity, and so on and so forth. So we can all see the human rights lesson in the story. Prejudice. The Nigerian Constitution of 1999 condemns prejudice in Section 42. Rights to freedom from discrimination. Now let's talk about a few themes of the story, To Kill a Mockingbird. One is racism and injustice. That's the first thing. Discrimination against a section of a town, a community in a town, because of their skin color, their God-given skin color. And injustice, the fact that a lawfully constituted law court can connive to find a man guilty, knowing very well that the accusation leveled against him are trumped up and that the man is innocent. It is a lesson the Atticus children had to learn in a hard way at the end of the story. Second theme, moral courage. Moral courage. We learn from the story as a theme, as a central message, from the character of Atticus Finch, that it takes courage to stand up against injustice. It takes courage to keep saying the truth, even when you know that people around you, a majority of people around you, will condemn you for doing so. That it takes courage, moral courage, to say this is the truth, when everyone around you is saying this is not the truth. Atticus Finch had to stand for the truth, defending Tom Robinson, an accused person whom he understands is innocent, but whom everyone around him in the white community will want the law to find guilty for an offense he has not committed, only because they want to see him go to jail and suffer for being black. Empathy is the third thing. Now, empathy means understanding. It means to understand someone's situation in such a way that you're able to put yourself in the person's shoes. A quotation from Atticus Finch in the story is that no one can really understand another person until you get into his skin and take a walk around there. That is empathy. That is when you really understand where this shoe a man wears pinches. Then finally, we talk about symbolism in the story. A mockingbird is a symbol in this story. It's a symbol of innocence, because the mockingbird does not harm anyone or anything else. It is a bird that only sings. So to kill a mockingbird means to kill the innocence. And that is what has happened in the story. Then the final lesson of the story is class consciousness. Class consciousness and inequality. People around the world are discriminated against by others for several reasons. One, because of your ethnic group or tribe. Secondly, because of your color. Thirdly, because of your gender. Thirdly, or fourthly, because of the class in the society that you belong, the social class. Fifthly, on religious grounds, people are discriminated sometimes because of the religion or religious group to which they belong. All of these are lessons to be drawn from To Kill a Mockingbird, human rights lesson. Now, apart from To Kill a Mockingbird and Tom Robinson, who is the victim of human rights abuse in that story, there are other three very good examples of victims of human rights abuse. First, let's talk about Steve Biko. Steve Biko was a South African anti-apartheid activist between the 1960s and late 1970s. Steve Biko started as a medical student. He was studying to be a doctor, but along the line, he had a change of heart. He decided to suspend the study of medicine and focus his life on liberating the oppressed black people of South Africa, among whom he was born. He said, and I quote, he said that the real good thing about a movement is that it can indeed change human habits. This change, however, is not the result of force, but of persuasion, and moral change. Steve Biko founded the Black Consciousness Movement, through which he preached the gospel of racial confidence, racial pride, and encouraging the Black people of South Africa to be assertive about their rights as the Black people and the owners of the land of South Africa. He led peaceful protests all over South Africa, urging the Blacks to defend their rights and condemning the anti-Black stance of the apartheid government in South Africa. He said, and I quote, "The greatest weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed." In other words, we are oppressed as people because we accept that we can be oppressed, because we accept that the oppressor has the right to oppress us. In other words, because of this acceptance, we already feel there's nothing we can do to protect ourselves, and so we submit easily to human rights oppression. In 1977, the anti-apartheid protest movements and demonstrations led by Steve Biko got to a point where the South African apartheid police arrested him, brutalized him, and beat him to such an extent that he died in their hands, becoming a human rights martyr. He is an example of a mockingbird, a bird that was killed for preaching self-determination, which is his natural right. That was Steve Biko, South Africa. Now, in Nigeria, a man called Ken Saro-Wiwa was born on the 10th of October, 1941. He was born in Ogoniland, in River State of Nigeria, which forms a part of the Niger Delta of Nigeria. Ken Saro-Wiwa was a writer, a teacher, a television producer, and a civil rights activist, especially environmental rights activist. He wrote many novels and plays, and was the producer of a television series called Bali and Company. Bali and Company. In the 1990s, Ken Saro-Wiwa became really concerned with the environmental pollution going on in Ogoniland, where he was born and brought up. The Ogoni people of River State form a minority group in the state, but the Ogoniland is rich with crude oil resources. So he turned his focus towards calling world attention to the injustices that the oil exploiting companies, most of them multinational companies like Shell BP, the Royal Dutch Shell BP, among others, who were exploiting crude oil in Niger Delta, especially in Ogoniland, and polluting the oil while giving nothing back, almost nothing back, to the indigenous people who own the oil. In 1994, Ken Saro-Wiwa, first of all, became the secretary and later the president of MOSOP, Movement for the Survival of the Ogoni People, MOSOP. And so, later that year, because of the protest marches, he organized the Ogoni people and the other people of River State to engage in their lands. The protests, all peaceful, non-violent protests, drew world attention to what was happening in the Niger Delta, resulting in some of the oil companies closing production. Around that period, 4 Ogoni chiefs were murdered, and the federal government of Nigeria, a military junta controlled by the late General Sani Abacha, accused Ken Saro-Wiwa and some other members of the Masop leadership of killing those 4 chiefs of Ogoni land, chiefs of their own land. And Ken Saro-Wiwa and the 8 other leaders got arrested, the so-called Ogoni 9. Although they faced trial, it was obvious that the charges against them were trumped up. They were innocent. Eventually, on the 10th of November, 1995, Ken Saro-Wiwa was found guilty and executed in the Port Harcourt prison, sparking global outrage. Now, Ken Saro-Wiwa is an example of another Mockingbird. If you doubt the fact that governments around the world frequently commit crimes and then impose the guilt for that crime on an opposition figure in order to destroy the figure, if you have a doubt about this, then I will recommend 1984 for you. 1984 is the title of a novel written by George Orwell. In this novel, he documents these facts, catalogs examples of how governments, dictatorial governments, can sometimes commit a crime in order to put it on the shoulders, to put the blame on the head of an opposition group so as to destroy that group. That was what happened in the case of Ken Saro-Wiwa. And then back home once more, MNK, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, is now serving a jail sentence, a life sentence. For what crime? For self-determination, for preaching self-determination. Now, first, self-determination is a cardinal principle in international law. What? That is the fact that ethnic nationalities around the world have the right to self-determination. They have the right to decide under which government they can live in. They have the right to forge ahead on their own and establish a country of their own and manage their own affairs. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu was fighting for racial equality. Through his Radio Biafra, he would call a government official a thief if he was a thief, which the mainstream Nigerian media would not do, even when they know that this is true. He wanted a better utilization of the abundant resources of Nigeria so that the distribution would get to all nooks and crannies of Nigeria and make all Nigerians comfortable. These are the things Mazi Nnamdi Kanu was fighting for. He wanted to end foreign control of Nigeria's resources, which impoverishes the Nigerian people. We all know what happened. Just like the case of Ken Saro-Wiwa, a military tribunal was set up for the purpose of finding Ken Saro-Wiwa guilty. The Nigerian court system also was set up for the very purpose of finding Mazi Nnamdi Kanu guilty, and that was what the court did. So today, we have talked about 3 Mockingbirds: Steve Biko of South Africa, Ken Saro-Wiwa of Nigeria's Niger Delta, and Mazi Nnamdi Kanu in his fight for the actualization of the state of Biafra. These are the Mockingbirds that have been killed. You must understand that to kill is not always literally. It is not always to shoot someone dead with a gun. Someone's destiny, a community's destiny, the destiny of a society can be killed through mismanagement of resources, through maladministration, which prevents the people from actualizing their potentials and keeping them in perpetual poverty. These are the kinds of killings that all of us in Nigeria are suffering. So in a sense, the masses of the Nigerian people, the masses of Nigeria are the mockingbirds, which die every day innocently for committing no crime, but for which they have been found guilty by the negative and oppressive policies of the government under which they're living. You have been watching Human Rights Heralds with the Human Rights Wizard, Ogochukwu Ono. Welcome once more to a quarter hour with the Human Rights Wizard. In case you have enjoyed this session, you know what to do. Like, share, and subscribe to this channel. There are many people out there who cannot get this channel unless you help us. So like and share this video and subscribe to it so that you will be receiving our video first. Share the video so that other people beyond you can also benefit from the gospel of societal equality, the gospel of harmony, the gospel of societal progress that we are preaching here. Thank you very much for once again being a part of history. Remain blessed and remember, know your rights, defend your rights, and protect your rights. I invite you to join us on our next video. Bye-bye.